So is everyone, I've got Pam Zeljak is with us. Pam, hello, there you are. Okay. Andy Purvis with the City of Leesburg's city clerk is with us today. And Vonda Parker and Vicki Murphy. We're waiting on some Simone. So I'm going to help Vicki here real quick. There we are. Okay. And we're waiting on Simone to come on board here. So let's give her a couple of minutes, but I wanted to do a really informal kind of introduction. I feel like we all know each other, but I could be completely just, you know, kind of, I know everyone here. But real quick, a little housekeeping just for this specific meeting. This is a unofficial. This is not an official meeting. Our official meeting won't be until September. This is a board orientation, so you understand what public art, what the Public Art Advisory Board would be doing, and what our responsibilities are. Pamela is our public art consultant through the City of Leesburg, and sorry, not the City of Leesburg, the Leesburg Center for the Arts, and has helped us out and tremendously in different ways with public art here. And she is the consultant that we will be using for creating the public art policy for the City of Leesburg. She's created a PowerPoint slide for us to kind of help navigate through a lot of our responsibilities as a public art board. It's not just throwing out an idea and putting a piece of artwork on it. There's a lot more to it. So there's a governing side of this. There's a curating side of this. The City of Leesburg has already invested in artwork throughout the city, murals, sculpture. They have a gallery space in the City Hall. I'm pretty sure we've all seen it one time or another. So they've already done a lot of, they've already included a lot of public art in their scope without even realizing that they do it. So we're just going to be here to help them through the way. So I want to, Simone is here with us. Thank you, Simone. Real quick, if everyone would take a second to introduce yourselves and, you know, why you chose to be part of this Public Art Advisory Board and your profession. And then, yeah, that's really it. So we're going to start with Vonda. That's you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Vonda Parker. I am the co-founder of the Max for One community. We have a youth creative arts program, and I always believe that art is very, very important. I think anyone displaying there and expressing art through creativity is a great thing. So I support art 100%.
Thank you, Vonda. Vicki? Unmute. Hold on.
Thank you. I need help. So my name is Vicki Murphy, and I'm the previous owner of Victoria's Antique Warehouse in Leesburg. And basically my art experiences, I love it, and I like what I look at. And I do decorating and stuff like that. And I believe in Leesburg, and I believe in making it a beautiful place.
Thank you, Vicki. Simone?
Hi guys, my name's Simone Richardson. I am CEO founder of Artists with a Purpose right here in downtown Leesburg. We do the painting with twist classes and also pop-up art in the community, and I'm definitely here to support to bring definitely unity in Leesburg. So definitely want to be a part of it.
Awesome. Thank you, Simone. And my name is Maria Stefanovic. I'm the executive director at the Leesburg Center for the Arts. Our goal is to build a inclusive community, our community here in Leesburg and for Leesburg. So we have been working with public art now since my since my introduction to the Leesburg Center for the Arts about 6 years, and we're really excited to get this launched. So I am here as your chair, and I'm looking forward to working with each and every one of you. I feel like this is going to be an awesome journey this first year, just getting some of the stuff on paper, and we've got a couple of pieces that projects that we have already been working on that we'll get to investigate and look into in September. So with that further ado, I'm going to introduce Pamela Zeljak with Civic Icon Arts. She is a public art consultant. Her former experience is with the Ocala, City of Ocala and their public art department. She is she is the reason why Ocala is so cool. So we worked with her for the last 3 years, and her knowledge in the public art realm has opened my eyes to, and we have learned a lot. So I am super excited to have her on board to help Leesburg get to the next chapter of public art. So welcome, Pamela. Do you want me to go ahead and start the presentation?
I'll go ahead and do it.
Okay.
If we run into any connection troubles, I'll let you take over, and I'll just talk from my phone.
Okay.
Actually, okay. My phone said it's being recorded, so I just have to say okay. Hi everyone, I'm Pamela Zeljak. I'm just going to be repeating everything Maria said already, but I'm a consultant. I'm with Civic Icon Arts, and I'm going to do a presentation. It's all about public art, why public art is important, why it's important for Leesburg, and just the little bit of background that we've done in Leesburg so far. But mainly it's going to be about like kind of the nuts and bolts of public art, and it can get kind of heavy, maybe a little boring because it's policy, but I love it because public art's my passion. So I will try not to get bogged down in the details so that you are not bored to tears. But if I start dragging a little bit, let me know.
Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome.
All right, I'm gonna share my screen. Here we go.
And while she's talking about that, we will send a recording of this and the PowerPoint presentation out in email. So some of our members that are not here today, Danielle Stroud and Daryl Crane, will also have the same information. And then we will be getting packets or booklets for the September meeting that will include all of this as well.
Okay, is that up there?
Yep.
For everybody to see. Oh. There we go. All right, I think we know where we are, so I'm going to go ahead and skip this. So why does public art matter? Why should the city be spending their money on public art? Well, it is proven, and I'm happy to share with you where I got these facts, but that public art enhances the community through economic growth and stability, through civic pride, by building the arts ecosystem, by promoting cultural understanding, and by promoting public health. So the economic growth and stability is mainly rooted in attracting and retaining businesses and residents. Public art is a tool for engaging the business community I'm sorry, I'm losing track already. People identify with communities that have green spaces, that have cultural resources, and people will move to areas that have those things. Specifically, they are looking for those things. 70% of Americans believe that arts improve the image and identity of their community. And this is all coming from a study that came out of Americans for the Arts. Public art creates an environment that supports other types of artists and creatives. So that's anything from graphic designers, architects, and these folks, outside of just being creatives, can help inform things like city planning, you know, creative arts groups. There are groups that will get together and form collectives outside of artist groups. And I want to let you know, most of the images that you're going to see here in this presentation are from communities that are very similar to Leesburg, both in demographic makeup and size and city budget. 73% of Americans agree that arts help them understand other cultures better. I'm going to talk about this a little bit more later on, but during the pandemic, this was more evident than ever. When people couldn't get out and go to any of their favorite indoor events, a lot of folks would go out and look at public art. And you know, even people that were interested in other things other than museums and galleries, you know, a lot of people were going outside to take walks. You know, they were outside exploring their cities, and people who work in public art were seeing a lot of people walking up to sculptures, walking up to murals, people that never would have normally, you know, talked to each other before, or definitely weren't from the same neighborhoods, engaging in conversations about either what they thought about it or about the subject matter. And, you know, things like that were really first times, but have been happening more and more. And public art has been shown to decrease stress and promote positive health behaviors. Again, very similar to what I just said. There are all kinds of public art walking tours, public art biking tours. Maria and I were just talking about, they have a biking tour down in St. Pete for their Shine Mural Festival. And so many hospitals and healthcare centers invest in art, both inside and outside, because they know that art is a way to both help people feel better just because it makes them feel happy, but there's also a connection between art and healing mental health. I'm sorry, that's the part that I'm looking for. The mind, the experience of art. I know the two folks that are here who work with art and then work with people who are experiencing and doing art, see that mental health transformation through working with art. So how do we make these things happen in Leesburg? So they've already taken the first step, you know, creating the advisory board. The second part is the adoption of policy and public art policy by the city commission. So those are sort of the things that we're going to look over today. We're also going to talk about a public art funding plan, because you can't get any public art if you don't have money to do it. And the creation of short-term and long-term goals by the advisory board. That's what kind of art do you want to see? Where are you going to put it? What's the process to go through that to make sure that those things happen? So we're going to start by looking at some different types of public art. I think when you ask most people what do they think about in public art, and probably not this group since you have some experience with art, but if you just walked up to somebody on the street, they'd probably say murals, or they might say sculptures, but there's a few other things that we'll look at. So these are the ones that we're going to go through. You can see on the screen, but we're going to go right through them. So first we'll just look at sculpture, and I tried to pick some examples of things that most people may not think of when they think of sculpture. So on the bottom right, you have a sculpture that may be sort of similar to what you might think of. The bottom left is something that is a little bit more interesting, but there's also fountains The one on the top left, and they should all be the same, even though I'm looking at them, I don't have to say my right and my left. Sometimes I get confused. But the top left is outside of a library, and it's a lit sculpture. I think those that have started to become very important day and night activation. Capital improvement projects is something we'll talk a lot about later, but art in infrastructure has started to become very important. It's something that most people don't think about when they think about public art. So we're talking about glass, whether it's in an atrium of a building, in a hallway, terrazzo floors. These are things that you have to think about when you're first building a building or remodeling a building, a wall installation. Whether it's on the bottom left, there's something that they installed on the outside of a building that can be incorporated, all the way up and down, and railings. It can be in, anywhere you can imagine it being on the outside of a building. I'm sure if you've traveled, you've seen all sorts of different types integrated into a building. Like I said, I've taken very specific examples from different communities. So I haven't gone all out. And if you've been to some bigger cities recently, you might have seen some really crazy things like huge LED screens and things like that. But here, these are just some examples. Here are some ones that are more municipal based. There's some storm drains, and a couple of cities around Florida recently have done some storm drain projects where they've been painting around them. On the bottom left, you see that. The top right is a really interesting one that's come around quite a bit. That one's in St. Paul. It's the first one that they did. They get community submissions of poetry, and then they stamp it into the concrete when they have to pour new sidewalks. In the bottom right, a lot of people have seen it's a crosswalk mural, and they've been doing these everywhere for quite a few years. Still very impactful. It is a traffic calming device. So there's a lot of things you can do with that, and a lot of these have multiple reasons they do them, both for art's sake, and cities do them for a lot of interesting reasons. I was going to say the bottom left too helps remind people that the only thing that should be going into the drains is water. So parks and trails. This is a lot of functional art. So we see on the top left bus shelters. That's a very popular way to incorporate art into the city. Benches, bike racks. The top middle is just an arch, but you can incorporate those into bike trails and walking trails. Top right is a shade structure. Those are great in parks, especially here in Florida, where we're all trying to stay out of the sun. And the bottom right is land. It's technically a piece of land art. It's called land art, but it's a nice little thing to do in a park. It just adds a lot of visual interest. Lighting projects are super fun, but they don't have to be big, fancy, expensive projects. On the right, that project is actually a safety project. So as you walk by these trees, the first time you walk by, they turn blue or they turn green. And then if the second time you walk by, they turn blue. So if you're walking down the street or past these trees, they all light up. And then if somebody's walking behind you, they light up a different color. So if somebody's behind you. And on the left here, we just have some sculptures that light up. So that's a nice way to bring night activation to city streets, to parks. There are also very big lighting projects you might have seen in Tampa. They have every year they have a lighting festival. They light up the bridges. And those projects actually aren't that expensive or hard to do. Murals. Murals don't just have to be what people normally think about murals. So overpass murals have become a big thing recently. You can see that on the bottom left, and on the bottom right is actually a transit project. The one on the right top is obviously a splash pad, but you can do ground murals just about anywhere. They can be on footbridges, on any sidewalk, and there are lots of products now that make them stick really well. And the bottom right is a what they call a living mural, and that means it changes pretty frequently. It can change every year. You just pick a area. A lot of times they happen in alleyways, or an area that just has very defined kind of squares, and it's kind of part of a festival. So playing in green spaces, these are really fun. So here you have some examples of public art that's kind of out of the box. The top two are actually in play spaces. Things for, you know, there's a lot of times you say like, don't get on the public art, don't play on the public art, it's dangerous, you could damage it. But there are specific things that are for playing on the public art. So here's two examples of them. The one on the right is at a playground, but it's also a shade structure. You can see if you look inside, there are benches. The one on the bottom left is for pollinators. There are a lot of these scattered around the park, but they're also designed by an artist. The one on the bottom right is part of a participatory project. And these are really great to do during a festival, and it doesn't just have to be an art festival, although Maria has done a really great job of doing a lot of participatory projects during the art festival in Leesburg. But you can do these any time of year and get folks involved in either art creation or just fun things like this. And now I'm going to go ahead and jump into sort of the meat of this this presentation. Maria, I'm just going to check in with your face there for a second. How are we doing?
We're good. We're good. We're good.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions before we move on to the next part? No, nothing yet. Okay. Because I'm just like kind of squeezing down where everybody's face is right here. So, all right. I'm going to move on then. Okay, so obviously the city of Leesburg values the idea of public art. They're moving forward with a plan for it. But, public art is a way to beautify the community. It's a way to engage with the community. It's a way to tell the story of the community. And it is unique in that it can be done in a way that it is free for all, that it is a way for the community to get involved in art creation in a way that everyone is able to see. So let's talk about how that gets done. This is sort of the purpose of public art in the committee, and we'll move on from the purpose of the public art in the community to the committee. So let me check this one. And okay, so you're kind of charged with guiding the collection of public art. And where we say the diverse collection of public art, what we're talking about is making sure that we hit all those types of public art that I just showed, and also hitting like that it's temporary work, that it's not maybe on loan and it kind of changes out, that it's permanent work, it's stuff that's going to stay forever, and maybe that it's participatory work, bringing in artists for people to work with, whether that's a muralist that people get to work with and interact with. Involving diverse artists. What do we mean by that? We're talking about artists of different ages, artists of different backgrounds, artists of different colors, genders, So we really want to make sure that the collection is hitting all those different people, that there's representation. Following the best practices on cooperation with the community. There now public art, we're making sure that it represents who is in the community. So we get community input, the artist will come in and speak with people in the community and make sure that what is being produced really does reflect the community. And we want the public to understand public art. We want them to make sure that it is speaking to them. Incorporating design throughout the community so that when people are seeing public art, it's not just downtown, it's everywhere. One of the things that will be important moving forward is that art is happening in all the different city buildings, because really if this is a city public art program, that it's coming from, it's located on city property and it's happening in city buildings. And also that's happening in city buildings all over the city, not just in certain areas of the city. And going back to the community again, that it's reflecting the diverse spectrum of beliefs and cultural heritage, and as well as the traditions of the city. And it's really for not just what people are interested in now, but it's building a legacy for the future. And we know from the ordinance that you all will be making recommendations to the city council about what you choose and what you want to propose. So you'll be making those proposals, getting all those documents together, and actually appointing somebody to go before, and well, I guess that's Maria who will go before and make that recommendation to them. So that'll include approving and denying donations, and I'll go over this more as we get there. Requests for memorials and monuments, taking down and maybe disposing of certain public art, talking again about those capital improvement projects. Some of that will come from within the city, planning with throughout the year, what you would want, how that's going to get funded, selecting the artists, selecting the sites, showing up when these projects are concluded and they're being dedicated to the city. The selection committees that actually make the choices on what's going to be done, and then just overseeing all of this. So the presentation moving forward, the way it's broken out is, how do you get public art? What do you do with it once you have it? And if you have to get rid of it, which we call deaccessioning, how does that happen? Maria put this in your packet. Basically, the way you usually make up a advisory board, a lot of times it's appointed by commissions, city council, city commission, but you usually want to have a representative from the city, representative from local arts organizations, some artists themselves, and some neighborhood representatives. So that information's here for you to look at. We don't necessarily have to go over it right now, but it's kind of important that you understand why those positions of different kind of positions are met, and what they represent to a public art committee. So how does the city collect public art? So there's three main ways. One is commissioning public art. One is if somebody wants to make a donation of public art. And one is people outside of the city will propose public art. So for purchasing, we'll start with purchasing, just because it's first here. You can either do an open competition, a limited competition. You can directly purchase from one person, or you can get a gift. So if the city wants to commission a new piece of artwork, which is normally what happens, it's very rare that a city will say, I just want to purchase a new piece of artwork. Usually what they do is commission. So there's an RFP or an RFQ. An RFP is a request for proposals, and RFQ is a request for qualifications. I'm actually going to skip over to the next page and I'll come back to this one. I am going to go in depth with this one because this is probably one of the most important, not probably, it is one of the most important things I'm going to talk about. So this is how it goes if you want to get a piece of public art in the community. So you select the type of project and where you want to put it. Say you want to put a sculpture in a park. That's pretty easy. So you write the call to the artist. You say, we want to hit these criteria. We want it to reflect nature and the joy of sharing picnics in this park, because that's always, that's traditionally been what this community does in this park. And we want it to be made out of stone. So you write that all in your call to artists. And then you choose a selection committee. We want 2 representatives from the neighborhood. We want this person and this person. And we need 2 people from our advisory board to be on it. And you release the call to the public, to a public artist website. There are 4 or 5 of them that every city uses because public artists go there looking for these calls. So we have our selection committee. After the deadline, the selection committee reviews all these applications. So if it's a request for proposals, artists put in proposals for what they, the concept they made up for this call. If it's a request for qualifications, artists will put in their resumes, the past projects that they've done that are like this project. So the selection committee will sit down based on which kind of call it was, and they will shortlist artists. So usually they'll pick 3. Sometimes they'll add 4 or 5. It's best to pick 3. And they'll notify those shortlist artists, and they'll give them a stipend for creating the concept if it's a request for qualifications. And the artist will then present their concepts to the selection committee over Zoom. Selection committee will make their final selection, and then you would take that and present it to city council. Once the final artist is selected, usually they'll get their contract. They'll get 50%, depending on the contract. That's kind of normal, 50%, a third of their contract fee, and then they go into fabrication. After fabrication, they'll come and install, usually with the help of somebody at the city. And then after they install, somebody usually will do some accessibility measures for people who are either have, are sight impaired, people that have physical difficulties. There are a lot of very interesting things that you can do to make art more accessible. And then usually marketing for the artwork is released. Before I go forward with that, are there any questions about that? Because I know that was super fast. No. Okay, good. And of course, you can ask me any questions later. So you can also do a invitational or a limited call, or call to pre-qualified artists. So then you're just going to people that basically can fulfill the duties of the projects. You're only sending it out to them. Or you can do direct selection. That's fine too. If you know somebody's perfect for the project. People who normally do not do direct selection, it's not equitable really to do direct selection. So concepts can, if you want to initiate a public art project, it can come from members of the community, people in leadership at the city, a neighborhood organization, private donors. I worked with private donors in cities that said, hey, I have $50,000 and I want a mural on this building. Can we make that happen? Still goes through all the same processes. But if they're going to fund it, sure, like, let's get this artwork going. An advisory board member can bring it up. or the executive director. So some important things to consider when you're doing a proposal or a call to artists is that the selection committee, or not the advisory board, will make up an evaluation criteria matrix. And it'll say the artist gets 5 points for their past works. So their basically application, their past works in their application. And we're going to give them 2 points for their letter of interest, which is usually something that they put in on their application. You can add into your matrix if the collection is not showing the diversity of the community, or if the artwork is going into a part of the community that is predominantly made up of one culture, and it is important to that community that the culture be reflected. You can weight that that matrix by saying we're going to give 2 extra points if the artist is from the community or is from this culture. And that helps with diversity and inclusion in your public art collection. And it's also important to use a matrix because it helps standardize the public art process, to know that every piece of public art is being judged by the same criteria. Something also very important to remember are the sunshine laws in Florida for cities. For all government in Florida, they are very broad. It's going to include everything that the advisory board does, every single part of the public art process. So anybody that puts in an application, any decisions that are made, that will have to be made open for public record if somebody asks. So
I'm going to interrupt real quick.
yeah.
Is everybody familiar with the sunshine laws?
Sort of, but not exactly.
Okay, Vonda, you too, kind of, sort of. Okay, Simone, I don't know if she's there or not. Kind of, sort of, sunshine laws. Yes, no.
Yep.
Okay, so
Yes.
okay, so we're governed under the sunshine law for the advisory board. What I will do is, with Andy's help, send out some guidelines on that so that we're well versed in that. The biggest thing is we can't, as an advisory board, you can't talk about business, especially I would say government business, city business, if it's not completed outside of the advisory board. These are public meetings. They're open to the public, so the public can come. This one was unofficial. We didn't invite the public to come. But essentially we discussed business at the advisory board meeting. So I just want all of us to be on the same page. I will reach out to Andy and see if we can send something out within the next 72 hours. That way you guys have that. Because I too am still learning a lot of those hoops in that realm. So I just wanted to share that with everybody. Go ahead, Pam. Sorry.
Okay, nope, that's okay. Yeah, it is. That's why I brought it up, because it's super important. But the final decision about this lies with you and the commission. So your recommendation, and then the commission's decision based on your recommendation. It is important to know that proposals for artwork cannot include, they won't be considered if they include representations of violence, illegal drug use, negative political messages, sexualized nudity, denigration, desecration of individuals, cultures, or significant cultural symbols. And also, religious subject matter or symbols can be included unless they are for the purpose of exhibiting cultural or historic traditions where they are the best way I can describe this is this typically a government organization will not pay for a sculpture of a religious figure if it's going to be outside of a church. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Now, if it's somewhere else, that might be different, but I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
So once you have artwork, what do you do with it? All collections have to be maintenance, no matter what they're made out of. So everything when you collect something, you want to make sure that it has reasonable maintenance requirements. You know, you don't want something that's made of delicate glass. When you agree to get something, you want to make sure that the city and whoever's doing the maintenance feel like it's reasonable. If it's not reasonable, the artist has to agree to do the maintenance work or pay for somebody to do the maintenance work. When you're thinking about, you know, the best place for the artwork, you know, that's actually not what I'm going to get into next. This is still when you're considering what you're going to collect, what you're going to do with it. Places that, nope, I was writing this. Hold on, give me a second. I gotta find where I was again. Okay, when you're considering the placement of the artwork, when you're getting it, you think about if you have a lot of sculpture in one place, or if you have a lot of, you know, murals by one type or one person in one place, you know, you want to spread that stuff out. You consider public safety. If this is a park where a lot of kids go to and the sculpture has maybe a sharp edge on it, you know, that's probably not the best place, but there's another place, you know, maybe downtown where, you know, it's a little bit quieter. You know, there are definitely certain places that are better for certain pieces of artwork. Environmental suitability. You don't want to place artwork under live oak trees. I've learned that the hard way. Suitability of the artwork scale and character of the location, similar to the first part. Lack of conflict with the principal purpose of the location. Same thing. You don't want to put certain artwork in a playground. You don't want to put certain artwork close to a cemetery or a place of reverence. Role of that artwork would play citywide versus a neighborhood related feature. Availability of suitable physical space. You don't want a big sculpture in a little place. I'm sorry, my cat is addicted to being on Zoom, so she might jump up here. Presence of residents to enjoy the artwork. You don't want to put artwork where nobody's ever going to see it. Inappropriateness of rotating or permanent. Cost to establish and maintain at site. Some really big artwork has to be concreted and rebarred in, and you don't want to do that in a sensitive area, especially if they think that there are gopher tortoises there. Then you definitely can't do that. Donations of public artwork. So if somebody says, hey, I want to give you this very odd, fragile artwork, do you want it? So they have to submit a letter of intent. They have to include certain information in there, title, dimensions, materials, and then you get to decide whether you want to suggest that to the commission or not. That'll be up to you. All costs coming from the artwork, they have to transport it there. How is it going to be installed? Depending on what it is, they might have to pour a pad on the ground. They might have to, if it's a hanging sculpture, they might have to reinforce the ceiling. That all should be paid by the donor. They should also be offering the city a maintenance endowment. to help continue to pay for the maintenance of the work. And they should also offer to or be required to pay for any additional education activities that will go along with the artwork. I think I might have accidentally dropped this one one of them in the middle, so we're sort of out of sync here, but that's okay. Y'all are smart and
Yeah, and they've got the backup on their
Okay.
PDF for it. So
All right, good.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. I'm sorry, I got out of sync here. Okay, so we're back to maintenance. Sorry. So you all will be in charge of overseeing the maintenance and working with the city, or if they have an outside contractor that's going to be doing the maintenance program. It'll be an annual thing, depending on what is in the collection, what they're made out of. Sometimes it only needs to be taken care of once a year. Sometimes it'll need to be taken care of every few months, at least a basic cleaning. But there should be a plan of how it's taken care of. There should also be a good list. You can use a database, you can use an Excel file of what is in the collection, basic information, title, dimensions, artist, you know, and basically what it needs to be taken care of.
I'm sorry, I'm
Okay.
trying to hear you, but I hear a lot of like phone ringing. I don't know where that's coming from. Maybe I can hear it through here. So
When I put my headphones on, that'll be better.
like I hear it right now, so I didn't know if that was
It's not me.
okay. I don't know.
Not me.
So I'm just putting whoever, so we can hear her better, might want to put on mute. So I'll just say it.
I don't know if this is better for you or not, but
That's good. I don't think that's it. Like it. I mean,
Oh.
somebody's phone's ringing in the back, so I was just trying to make sure I hear you.
I didn't do it.
No, you're fine.
it might have been my cat. I have a bowl over here to the side. She might have been hitting it.
Possible.
This is the joys of working at home, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. One of the things that you have to worry about with your public art is vandalism and graffiti. I think there was, the entire time I worked for the city of Ocala, there was only one incident. You actually don't have to worry about it that much. And it's interesting, people talk about graffiti. I never had a problem with any true graffiti artist. The only problem I ever had was with young kids that were just bored. So
and I will piggyback on that because I find this interesting. The city of Mineola has been doing a community mural, several of them on the trail system. And they've had several pieces of their community mural installed. And where they don't have the art has been some graffiti, right? But it's not on the art. So I find that interesting because it's almost like the graffiti artist wants to be included in the conversation. So I think we need to think about that as well, is that when we're looking at graffiti, there's a lot of negative connotation that goes with graffiti. That's not always the case. So, but sorry, I wanted to move forward because I'm a big graffiti proponent, so I love it as an art form. And I think there's a lot of ways that we can encourage our youth to in their creativity by just recognizing their ability. And sometimes artists come from the graffiti world. So with that being said, sorry, Pamela.
no, it's okay. Yeah, actually a lot of muralists, that's where they originally start out. Another part of maintenance is disaster preparedness. Can you all hear me on this?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm. Yes.
Okay, good. So it's important to be prepared especially in Florida. This talks about fires. We don't have, as big a problem with fires as we do obviously with hurricanes. And in Central Florida for us, hurricanes sometimes come with flooding. When I worked at the city of Ocala, we prepared for 3 hurricanes. We only got, our biggest damage came from Irma. The problems that we had the most were limbs down and flooding. We had flooding at a park that we had sculptures at, and it did come up toward almost to the middle of some of the sculptures. Something else that we had to think about was our taller sculptures. We had one that had like a butterfly kind of, it was solidly like stuck on, but it did move with the wind. So we had to deinstall the entire sculpture when we knew the hurricane was coming. So what you have to think about to be prepared for those things is you have to have a booklet with everything printed out. It's good to keep a thumb drive too, with all those things printed out with your database, your Excel file printed out. Also marking the location so that when it's time to go out afterwards, after it's done and look, you know what you're looking for, you know what condition it was in before the hurricane. Also to have a storage space arranged ahead of time. If you do need to take those things down, you have a place that it can go. To have, if there's anybody out there, especially the parks folks that are going to go out there and look for downed trees, that are going to be in places where it's flooded, that they are aware of the artwork, that they're aware that you're going to be coming out there to look at it. And I don't know if this, is going to fall on you all, or if there's a city staff member that's going to be assisting, but they should be trained in how to handle the artwork, or if there's just going to be one city contractor that they, that they work with, that is going to know, that things need to be bagged, things need to be, tagged that this belongs to this artwork and it broke off. You just need to have a disaster response plan. And it's really, I don't know if I kept this on here. I didn't. There are lots of resources out there, which is really great. There's a 1-800 number you can call if your city's been struck by a disaster and, your public art collection was damaged or you don't know what to do. I have that actually on your form. I just don't have it on here. So what happens if you have a piece of artwork and it's either been, and this is outside of a disaster, but it's either been damaged beyond repair, completely damaged, or, completely destroyed. It's been stolen, or for lots of other reasons, which are listed here. It just needs to be deaccessioned. It needs to be removed from the collection. It's a really, really important one because it's somebody's artwork, an artist or a donor gave it to you. And 2, because it's now city property, it's government property, that you follow a very particular set of guidelines, because it needs to be surplused as part of public property. And 2, there's a copy in your packets of the Visual Artists' Rights Act. And because it's a artist's work, you also have to do certain things. Now, there are some cities that are asking artists in their contract to waive the Visual Artists' Rights Act. I don't think that's appropriate. That is I guess at this point, that's a personal opinion. I think there are ways to work around that when you get into the contract, but you can ask me more about that later if you're interested. So why might you want to deaccession a piece in your collection? Like I said, it's damaged. Here it says it's fraudulent, stolen, or not authentic. There's a threat to public safety. Its security cannot be guaranteed, which it's in a particular place where there's a lot of graffiti or things are being stolen a lot, you just don't have it out on display. It doesn't, it doesn't work in your city, or, you're choosing not to display it. Or in some cities, when they start their public art collection, they have like a famous artist that lives in their town, and there's a donor that just gives them 5 pieces by the same artist. That's not necessarily necessary in a public art collection, so they might choose to deaccession some of those. So what happens if you choose to do that, if you recommend to the city? So you write something up, you give all the pertinent information on that piece of art. I'm starting out here saying, if a piece is vandalized or destroyed, what are you supposed to do? Somebody at the city probably will see it first, or somebody from the community is going to see it and report it to the city. I don't know what the city's damage or incident report looks like. We can find that out, and they can share basically just what it looks like with you, what it is. They'll complete that, or we'll figure out a way that they want to do that. And if the police need to be contacted, they should be contacted. That's just a note on how that should be done. But on the bottom of this page, you'll see the part we're going to talk about now. So what should happen if you want to do this? If you want to recommend a decommissioning to the city commission, you'll put together a document that says why you want to do it. It should be legally reviewed, how the city came to have it, the cost, the current appraisal of the work. If the public needs to be involved in any feedback, if it was a project that the public was really involved in commissioning, and if there's any other way that the city could possibly keep it, other than deaccessioning it, that should be included too. The donor or the artist should be informed that that's what's going to be happening, and also it should be publicly noticed. So what are some things what are some ways to deaccession after the pieces, it's decided that it should be gotten rid of? You can give it back to the artist. You can donate it or loan it to a gallery or a museum. You can sell the work, and the money can come back to the public art collection. If it's very, very damaged and it's kind of unrepairable, it can be disposed of in like technically fully disposed of, however the city sees fit. But if it's sold, or even if it's going to be disposed of, nobody on the advisory council can take possession of it, and no city staff member can take possession of it.
And I want to share, just for a little background story. The city of Leesburg commissioned a 8-panel mural. It was an indoor mural by Sid Smith, and that was our bicentennial mural. He did that in the 80s, I believe, and then it was hanging in the community building for a very long time, above the main doors when you would walk in. When they were clearing out the community's building, they deinstalled that mural and saved it. And then what they did was, as part of their decommission, is they donated it to the Leesburg Heritage Museum, and the Leesburg Heritage Museum, the Leesburg Public Library now own that piece, and they display it. So that's an example of how to decommission work. Or yes.
Okay, we're on the public art education. So not all of the public art that's going to come to the city, but commissioned pieces should have a public art component to them, or a public art education component to them. Of course, they have a public art component. all the educational activities should be accessible to all the citizens, and they should be appeal to the broadest group of citizens. So ideally they're free, and they appeal to, it's hard to get something to appeal to everybody, but it should be made possible. And whenever possible, there should be a professional artist, ideally the artist that created the artwork, involved. And this, yeah, I believe this is the last slide. So public art funding, this is everybody's favorite subject. Most public art projects that are city projects are funded, and even small and mid-sized cities, they're funded on what's called a percent for arts program. That means that a city sets aside 0.5 to 2% of a project on a capital improvement project, which is a new building, new road project, or renovation. So 0.5 to 2% of that budget to go towards public art. There's usually a threshold that they set that's like $250,000. That's when it starts. So if they're going to do like a $50,000 project on, renovating, painting and putting new walls and something, that wouldn't count. But if the project gets to $250,000, then they'll say, okay, that triggered the percent for art. Now we're going to put 1% aside so that this building can have, a glass, all the glass across the front of the building is going to be public art. That's what every public art program is shooting for. That's the ideal. Some other things that cities can do if they choose not to do that is they can put a line item in the budget every year. They can say, we're going to spend $100,000 on public art every year. So we're just going to put that in the budget, just like we put money in for whatever else we put money in for, public works or parks or anything like that. It is a good best practice to put in a rollover policy to guarantee that that line item, if, the public art program doesn't spend any money that year, or they think they're going to need $200,000 for a project, that the city put that into ordinance, that money will roll over, or that they put it into ordinance that money can never be cut if there's an economic downturn. That kind of protects it if there's no percent for art policy. Another way that they can do that is annual funding from CRA. Not ideal, but it can work. For cities that are kind of starting to boom, a city can mandate private developers to put a certain amount into the public art fund. Developers, they can also mandate developers to put a certain percentage of money into public art. They can say, like, for same thing on a percent for arts, they can say for your whole budget, you have to give 1% either to the city for public art, or you can do your own project up to this amount, or this amount at your location, or we will, or the city advisory board will do a project for you for that amount on your site. You don't have to run it, but they're mandated to do something. Public-private partnership, which is actually what's going on here for the most part. Or a city will say they will give out public art grants or match funds for private entities, and they will set aside a certain amount every year to do that. But just remember, the percent for arts is really the best model. And that's pretty much what everybody does because it is the best funding model.
And so right now, the way we are operating is it is a we're out, it's not even a line item on the city's annual budget. It is based on project. So sometimes if it's a capital improvement project, we're getting requests from the department, or we're getting requests from city manager's office. So we're hoping to build, I think with this committee, advisory board, we can help build like a actual revenue stream that will help fund the public art that we want to see in the future here in Leesburg. Does anybody have any questions? This is your moment of time. I know that was long, so thank you for like bearing with us, because that's a lot of information. You are going to get a recording of this, so that if you want to watch it again, I understand it's a lot. A PowerPoint, you'll get a copy of the PowerPoint presentation, and then you also have what I put in your Zoom invite, which was an attachment. It was the PDF version of this, which is black and white, easy read, as well as the Visual Arts Rights Act in there, so you can see what she was talking about. And that's a federal act that protects the visual artists and their work. Because even though we've commissioned it, or we have essentially bought it, they still have rights to the content. So because they created the work. So I'm going to give everyone the floor. Does anybody have any questions?
I think you answered my question, Maria. I was going to ask about the funding for any projects, and you answered it. So that relieves my question.
Okay. Simone, Vicky?
No, I think I've got it.
Okay. Simone?
I do not have any questions right now. I'm still trying to remember
Process?
yeah, but I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have questions the next time we come through.
Okay.
Like right now, I'm like still thinking.
No,
but
I
yeah.
totally get it. It's a lot of
Yeah.
information. This is new for us. This is new for our city. So it is going to be, I anticipate our next meeting in person, which is September, and I was looking it up, 21st, because we moved it from the Thursday to the Wednesday. So it is going to be the third Wednesday of the month. So our next one is September 21st at 3 p.m. in City Hall. Andy will be there. She will be taking our minutes. And we will be able to kind of jump right in to some of the projects that the Center for the Arts and Pamela has been working with the city on, because now that's being turned over to this Public Art Advisory Board. And so we can start looking at that and answer any of the questions. I know a lot of it is to process. That's just the way it is. I had to read it 4 times, so I understand. And I would, when you are coming to this meeting, please bring any of your questions with you so that we can tackle that and be out of there in an hour. Because we all got also other things that we got to do. So, all right. Well, I appreciate you guys' time. And if you have any questions for Pamela, she is available. I will share her contact information with everybody. Like I said, it's not her first rodeo. So she's working really close with the city of Inverness as well to incorporate something very similar. So the municipality realm is, she knows well. So I think I'm thrilled that she's on our team and can help us guide us through that, what we want to accomplish. So, all right, guys, thank you so much. I
Thank
appreciate your
you.
time. All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.